We are starting in a seated back mount with a seatbelt grip. When I get my seatbelt grip, I want my high hand over their shoulder, low hand comes under their arm and grabs over top of my high hand. The reason I want my low hand over top of my high hand is because people will more often not end up fighting my hands and they'll end up pushing my low hand off the high one, leaving my high one to choke. Oftentimes people end up hand fighting and resisting when you go for the choke. So they might grab it with their own hands or they might tuck and bury their chin. One of the ways I like to deal with this is I'll take the arm that I was initially trying to choke with and I'll use it to try and pry their head up to expose their neck so I can slide my other arm in to get the choke. Sometimes people get really heavy with their chin when defending against the rear naked choke. One of the ways you can deal with this is with knuckle pressure. It's kind of hard to show when you're fully locking up the rear naked choke, so I'm just going to show it with the one hand. All I do is I take my knuckles, I'm going to find her jawbone, I'm going to try and sneak right underneath it and pry it under. So for anyone under 16, you are not allowed to do direct throat pressure. So the easiest way that I've found to avoid getting direct throat pressure is when I go for this choke, I try my best to make sure that my elbow is in line with my partner's chin. If it's not in line with their chin, it's pretty much just direct throat pressure. So a couple tips on holding back mount in order to be able to get and work some of these chokes is you need to make sure you have a good hand and head position. So for starters, I'm going to try and keep my chest to their back. I'm going to take my arms and I'm going to give her, like I'm giving her a nice big hug, and my head isn't going to stay up here because if it does, she can use her hands, try and grab my head, and all sorts of fun stuff like that. So instead, I'm going to tuck my chin down here, my head's going to push against hers, and my chin's going to go right over her shoulder. Try and stay as tight as possible to your partner here, and make sure you give them a little bit of squeeze. It doesn't have to be comfortable. Okay. Here's a small tip on attacking this choke. You want to protect your primary hand. So in this choke, that would be the hand that's going over her shoulder and around, because that's the one that's easiest for me to choke with. It's really hard to try and get a choke with this hand here, with my low hand, and a lot easier for my partner to defend. So primary is over the shoulder, secondary is under the armpit.